Peace and welcome. Say hi this morning to Annie and Carmen and Judith and David and Tim and Brooke, and welcome Quiet Energy. I think you might be new here. Hey, Robert. So, peace to you all. Today, you will not die. Peace and namaste. Welcome, my friends, to Not Church. Today, you will not die. Every NDEer knows this is true. Transcendental mysticism, not church. Transcendental mysticism with a Christian accent. No doctrine, no dogma, no Bravo Sierra. Deconstruction. The Bible and more through the lens of my two near-death experiences, symbols, myth, metaphor, and simile. I'm Peter Panagore, ex-clergy, natural-born mystic like most of you or many of you, contemplative, and I know that I'm known by the knower with a capital K, which means I'm not a believer. I know I am known. The reality of the divine that Robert is calling Father in the chat, that you might call the ineffable or the divine or the beloved or the source, or for me, sometimes the not thing with a capital N. This is the source of our life. This is where knowing comes from. And when you're known by the knower, it's a communion that happens between the two. When the knower knows you, you then know that you are known. That's just a little aside. Today, as I've mentioned 3 times now, you will not really die. We'll finish with Eve and Adam's creation myth today, leaving only the recreation myths. Yes, there are 2 more, and these 2 are recreation myths. Brace yourself, the two Noah stories. 2 by 2, the stories come. Yes, there are 2 Noah stories, and we're going to cover both of them. And we're going to then finish this whole creation series of myths with the Tower of Babel, where I have been aiming this series, where I have been aiming not church all along. I have other little tiny aims, but this one is a central place that we will begin our understanding of what the wisdom that was spoken through the tongue of Jesus actually meant. And I don't hold this as some anointing. This arises from the wisdom of a heart that's been in the presence, and I read in the words of Robert this morning, and on many other near-death experiencers, Brooke as well, that the divine light that lives inside us speaks the wisdom for us. We know it when we see it in its purest vibrational sense. The cosmic Christ, the always being and the divine everywhere, all the time. Love above. We're going to continue after this series. We're going to go into the Gospels, the 4 Gospels, but we're also going to explore more deeply the Gospels of Thomas, Mary Magdalene, and probably some of Philip too. In the months to come, we're going to explore and deconstruct many of the other Bible verses, not just the words of Jesus, but there's a lot to cover. Now that we're almost completed with all of this background work that I started 2 years ago, 2 Easters ago, to prepare for leading up to this place where we're going to go now, and we've dipped into it as we've gone along, a little bit here, a little bit there, but with all this preparation, we're going to also explore other biblical verses where the light shines through, as it does in the beatific vision of Ezekiel and the bright face of Moses, or the transfiguration, which we've already begun to touch on months ago, the transfiguration of Jesus. Compassion and kindness are the natural outgrowths of a personal, mystical transformation. Compassion, kindness, and humility are the natural outgrowths of a personal, mystical transformation. in that regard. Because mystics live in the real world, please consider a gift to those who are in urgent need fleeing genocide. They need your help. There's little that we can do without sparking an international World War III. But we can help these people. There have been refugees in the world as long as the world's existed. And I don't know if you helped other refugees in the past few years, but these ones are facing genocide. I gave through the International Rescue Committee. I have no relationship with the International Rescue Committee other than I respect their work. The link is below. Pick an organization and give something if you can. If not, give love. And that's what we do here in our communion with each other. We bind ourselves together in the center of our beings, in the thin place of the temple of our heart, where we have an ear to hear and an eye to see. We center ourselves in the beginning here, with each other, with the state of the world in mind, understanding that we are not alone, that there is a great global awakening underway now, being driven forward by medical science because science is raising the dead and it's creating an army of tens of millions of near-death experiencers around the world that are getting voice and helping you get voice. Mystics of all kind, even in Russia. Yes, even there. The near-death phenomenon, the near-death experience phenomenon, is driving spirituality globally. But the real origin comes from right here inside of you. And this is the message that Jesus was teaching all the way along. And it's the message you can find in Rumi and Hafez, and you can find it all over the world because it speaks right inside our being. And so we begin our time together this morning, centering in a little bit. We begin following a chant. You just follow my Om. I'll chant it aloud. I'll vibrate my heart. Oh, driving right up, leaving a space, taking a belly breath and filling my lungs and repeating 3 times. And then we settle into our centering prayer, riding the chant of our prayer, our mantra, into our belly breath, into the navel, and then again up to the third eye, breathing with your chant, riding your breath, riding your chant like a butterfly on your palm. No grasping. When your mind wanders, return to your chant. We hold this space. What we're doing here is we're holding this space together where 2 or 3 are gathered. I am there. This is the space for Shaktipat. This is the place where we share the divine energy. Where 2 or 3 are gathered, the I am is here. So please join me. Relax, follow your breath, pray your prayer, ride your breath. You will not really die. The serpent in the story was right. The serpent in the story was truthful. We do not die. Adam and Eve did not die when they incarnated. Instead, they and we went blind. And we are bound in this world of forgetfulness of the origin of the goodness of our being that lives inside you and pervades everything there is beneath this world, inside this world, supporting this world. And if you find the goodness now inside yourself, you live in heaven here. Here is the beginning of heaven for you, for us. We set aside our higher nature when we incarnated and entered into this world where we experience this duality, this image of duality, this appearance of duality, of yin and yang, these two sides, our divine nature and our human nature. Oh, you little cutie. I think of Eve, who, at the beginning of this third chapter of Genesis, doesn't even have a name. Everything else in the world is named, except the woman. It's gotta have been a man who wrote this. That should tell you something about the misogynistic perspective of the author that pervades. And this is one thing we need to unpack as we go through the speaking verses of Jesus' sayings. Jesus was against his time, a man out of time, a man out of culture. And that's what mystical experience does. It removes oneself from culture, and his culture, his understanding, his truth with a capital T, is equality. Equality not based in physicality, but based in divinity, in your divinity. This is where the truth is, that you and I and all of us are made of light and love, our higher selves incarnated here. And we forgot, and we go blind, and our ego asserts itself. Of necessity, we need an ego in the world, and that's what enabled us to kill the mastodons to survive and grow our food and pick the berries and form cohesive tribal groups, which are now a bit of a problem. I'm a bit far afield here from the misogynistic perspective of the author, but all these things have origin in our culture, right here in this pardon me, Eve and Adam's story, because Eve in this story is the mother of the universe. Eve's choice gives birth to existence, metaphorically, mythologically speaking. Before she made this choice of eating, I should have brought an apple with me. Pretend I have an apple. Before she ate the fruit, there was no universe, mythologically speaking. So Eve becomes the mother of us all, not just you and me, human beings, but all of us everywhere across the 13 billion light years and trillions of galaxies. Mythic Eve gives birth. Her curiosity, her curiosity creates our reality, mythically speaking. She is the birth mother of all there is. Eve's curiosity is the cause of the creation itself. Listen to this. The tree, quote, the tree produced fruit that was good food. The tree produced fruit that was good food. This apple, 2 bites. This apple is good food. It has goodness in it. Goodness is woven into its very being. Goodness flows from the throne of the divine in the crystal river through the heavenly city, down that main street, into the tree of wisdom, the two-trunked tree of wisdom, producing the leaves of the world and watering everything there is in Eden. And everything there is in Eden produces good. You will know them by their fruits, the Gospels tell us. The fruit of the tree of, ugh, I hate this name. The knowledge, well, that's good. Of good, that's okay. And evil, well, that's not so much. But the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, it's good food. It was attractive to the eye and desirable for making one wise. She took some of this fruit, and because she is a forward-thinking person, she ate it. And then because it was so good, she's like, this is good. And her consort eats it too. The fruit of the tree was good. They eat and become self-aware. They know themselves as selves. Their ego pops into being. Egoic mind becomes reality. Separation. Oh my God, she's naked. Oh my God, look at that. And they're like, better get dressed because their innocence is gone. They became like us, just regular human beings made of 2 parts, divine goodness and the cutie little flesh thing that we are. Or rather, maybe we became like them. When I was in communion, capital C, with union, U, capital U, I was in a state of innocence. I'll say that again. When I was in the communion of the state of union, in the presence of the divine, infilled with oneness of being, I was in a state of innocence with a capital I. My innocence came back. It was returned to me. I became who I'd always been. Innocent and innocence in the presence of the divine eternal love. This purity of being, capital P, capital B, this purity of being is experiential and heaven and tasted here. Innocence is the eternal nature of my highest, of your highest self. Innocence is your eternal nature in the goodness of the middle of you, where the image of you originates. Whenever the fullness of the light shone on me, I was transported into innocence. Mystical experiences show us who we are, and yours is tinged with innocence as well. For when one sees oneself in the divine eye of love, truth of self returns, and the understanding of love becomes dominant, and healing becomes real. When I was dead, like Adam and Eve, look at those bodies. Like Adam and Eve, I was naked in front of the face of light, only my nakedness was total transparency. And maybe that's what this means mythologically for Eve and Adam, that their whole selves became substantively transparent to the eye of the divine, and they knew it. I knew my nakedness in the light of love, and I saw all aspects of my Peterness, of my human incarnatedness, of my falls, in the light of love. Nothing of me was unknown. Every nook and dark locked safe box of my life as Peter has all of my other incarnations are always known by the knower. My eternal nature, your eternal nature, is always fully known in every incarnation, because this is how the divine is inside of us, seeing the world through us, perceiving through us, everywhere, all the time, in everyone, in every tree, in every chickadee. The Peter part of me was naked in the light of self-understanding as I went through the purgative fire of divine love. And I've told these stories before. You know the story now. Part of my telling the story 1,000 times is so that it can become a window into scripture for you. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. Because when I came back, scripture became interpreted, seen through the lens of the divine love in which I swam, in which I lived. And I figured along the way that maybe my story could crack open the scriptures for you too. Hence the study of them, hence their importance. I was naked in the light with a capital L of self-understanding. I saw all of me as I was seen, as I went through the purgative fire of divine love. Nakedness. Everything was revealed about me, about my knowledge of good and my evil. Ah, such a terrible word, that evil word. There is evil in the world. We see it today. We see it right now. There is evil in the world. And where does it arise from? It arises from the egoic self of separation, separation from the divine. The egoic mind turned inside itself narcissistically, malignantly, until it becomes the only God it knows and wants to assert its power over everyone. That's extreme. I saw my own good, and I saw the suffering I gave in the world, and that seemed to me to be enough evil for me. Things I chose to hurt others. Nothing of me was unknown. And as I've said, and you know, I was not judged. I judged myself in comparison to infinite light. I judged my human life. And I loved my life once I was freed from the burdens of my karma that I had created and the things that I had chosen. People tell me we choose to live the lives we live, and that seems to me to be the case because I chose the life I'm living now when I first died the first time. So it's reasonable to think that I chose the one I have lived the entire 63 years of my life. But in this goodness of myself, I also live inside the world. I'd like to remove that word evil, maybe ignorance or forgetfulness of love is a better languaging of it. Eve and Adam chose, and so they incarnated into human life on earth. And Creator tossed them out of unlimited heaven into limitation, from unmanifested fullness of eternal love into manifested matter. Yeah, I got flicked out of heaven like a little tiny booger off a 7-year-old's finger. Me being the 7-year-old. I got flicked out of heaven, lovingly flicked, sent back into this yin yang world of beauty and ignorance, away from full paradise with a capital P, where suffering, where ignorance, where evil is unknown, does not exist in the goodness of the presence of the divine light. The tree of the knowledge of good and ignorance, well, it's really about forgetfulness, the tree of the goodness and the forgetfulness of our original, true, living nature, which right now I hope you feel. I hope you feel the radiance that I do. To live inside the constant presence of the divine now, and to share this in community, because each of us brings our portion of the image of the goodness inside of us. The tree of the knowledge of goodness and ignorance, of goodness and forgetfulness, of goodness and duality. You'll remember the nakedness of Eve and Adam as they hid their delicious little bits, their humanity, from the person of the divine, as it's told in this story. Walking through the garden, looking for Eve and Adam, where'd you go? God anthropomorphized in this story. But like Eve and Adam, wanting to hide their bits of themselves, I wanted to hide my humanity away from the all-seeing eye of Creator. But like Eve and Adam, I could not hide. I was fully seen and known, and knew that I was known, knew that I was seen, as they were. Mythology reflects experience. Eve and Adam chose this world. They chose to incarnate. Eve is the mother of creation, the creation of this world. And remember when the breath blew upon the water in Genesis, creating the world? One myth. Or before the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and God was the Word, and it was spoken into being. Or the crystal river flows out from the throne in Revelation, creating the world. All of these myths combine to give meaning to each other's, to give understanding to us. Eve and Adam chose this world, and so did I. I chose to live again, twice, in this life. God knows how many others I've lived. I saw a few, but none of us know the consequences of choosing to live this life. We can barely see by the next moment, let alone remembering where we're from. When I was dead, I had forgotten like it never existed the world of suffering, the world of ignorance, the world of forgetfulness. It was gone for me. Yes, I saw it. Yes, I was shown it, but I wasn't in it. I was a witness observer, given understanding, but in the protective shelter of the divine safety of love. But when I was there, I'd forgotten the world and all the suffering. And, when Eve and Adam were in Eden, they didn't know about suffering or ignorance or forgetfulness. They had an inkling of it when they ate the apple and saw their egoic minds. That was the beginning of it for them, but they couldn't possibly know the universe they had created because they hadn't experienced it yet. So God goes on and tells them, it's going to be hard, is what God says. And it is. But comes along with this hardness is the inner goodness, which pervades all things always. In Eden, all they knew, in heaven, all I knew was goodness of love, plenty, abundance, wholeness, healing, wellness of being, and good living. Even Adam, they chose, they entered this world of physicality and forgetfulness. Banished, as the story goes. Flicked away. Eve and Adam were barred. Here's the thing I wanted to get to. This is another thing I've been trying to get to. I've been trying to get to this one place for a long time. Eve and Adam were barred from heaven by an angel whirling a sword of fire, protecting heaven's entry gate from their return. I returned to heaven through the fiery sword, which cut away my mortality, revealing to me the truth of what the serpent said: you will not die when your body dies. Eve and Adam did not die when they incarnated, and we do not die when our bodies die. The snake spoke truth. The fiery sword showed me myself as a human incarnate. And when I turned to divine love with the eye and the ear of my heart, I entered Eden and abandon of abundance into fearlessness and wholeness. Fear not, my friends. You will not die. Death is a portal of remembrance, opening to light, leading us home. Many NDEers, they don't pass through the purgative fire of love as I did. They didn't need it. I did. Why? I don't know. There was no fiery sword for them. Maybe there won't be one for you. Maybe there will. I don't know. I expect I'll pass through it again myself. Without a moment's hesitation, when I died in 2015, again, I was willingly going, desirous, longing, as I had been for so many decades, for my return, willing to walk through the fiery sword. You just bring me home, and I will go. Because so I was promised, so I tell you. Divine goodness is the light of the love of heaven available here and now and waiting for us in fullness there. So long as you have a flicker of light or a lick of love, of belief inside you, it is enough. I willingly and joyfully await my passage back through the cleansing fire of divine love and return to the abundance of my beloved. I was promised a return to union. Those hell story NDEs that are like mine, only in their story they didn't get pulled out by light. Maybe they weren't there long enough and they needed a lesson in this life in order to change, to live the life that they were meant to live, to bring the light to those meant to hear it from them. I am not the only speaker here. Every human being illuminated in the light itself is a speaker for the divine in those three things: compassion, kindness, humility. These are the outgrowths of transportive love. Those of us who pass through hell, and in this I include Reverend Howard Storm, we found salvation waiting for us and calling to us. Love. Turn to light now. This is the trick of it. This is super simple. It's super, super simple. Turn to light again and again and again. Get into the practice of light creation, of light opening, of light space, of light flow inside yourself. Because heaven begins here and now if you choose it. Eat this fruit and gain the tree of wisdom. Next week, the next to last recreation myth, and I am tentatively calling next week's talk the contradictory Noah myths and the lie that Christians have believed for centuries. Too long a title? Probably. So thanks to you and to the beloved. We're still here every week, Sunday morning, right here. Week to week, your gifts really, truly, and your encouragement and your help. Lots of people are like, oh, you should think about this. Oh, and one of the things that happened this week, a very helpful thing, was the insistence of one particular person, thank you, Susan, for saying, no, I still hear the birds and the squirrels. So I did some further testing and I found that she was right. And oh, wait, listen, birds and squirrels? No, not a one. Problem solved. Thanks, Susan. It's your gifts like that and your financial support and your encouragement that keep me going. So thank you. And I couldn't do this without you, because this is what I'm hoping that this is right, is a spokesplace for all of us. That's why this is so egalitarianly oriented, especially at Mystic Tea Salon. Thank you, Mary S. Thank you. I couldn't do it without you. And I keep it free instead of erecting paywalls because the light belongs to everyone. All my life I've given it away, just as the ineffable voice instructed me the year before I died. And another mystic transcendental experience. Patreon or PayPal or using your cards, that's great. Also, I do counseling and conversation by appointment. At peterpanagore.love, I do my best to respond to everybody by email who writes into me and the comments. I spend a lot of time each week trying to do that. Appointments I have to take by scheduling. Thanks. peterpanagore.love. At the top of the next hour, please join us for our international conversation with a collection of real-life mystics who have found inside themselves the truth that I said twice now. I'll say third. Compassion, kindness, and humility are signs of the divine presence. And there's a group, top of the hour, Mystic Tea Salon, link below. Humility and kindness rule there. Thanks for spending this time with me this morning. And please like and share and subscribe, all that stuff. It really, really helps. Thank you. And now to the chat. Thanks for chit-chatting over there. I'm going to take a drink of water, take a look at the chat. I'm just jumping in what I'm seeing here. Thank you, Tiffany, for saying so. Wonderful, not church. Thank you, Lawana. I appreciate your appreciation. Thank you, Nicole. Your sadness has been turned to light once again. This light is more powerful than all the brokenness of the world. And when one swims in it, there's a serenity that comes despite whatever emotional spikes happen or sadness infills. Underneath all of that, this light lives inside you as goodness as you actually already are. So I'm really not telling you anything that isn't already true inside of you. But you're welcome. Together we turn this back to light. Thank you, quiet energy. Thank you. Your understanding is great. It's not mine. So thank you, Hugo, about brilliant, about evil. So this is the thing that happens in divine experience. The wisdom, the light isn't mine. I've never, ever said it was mine. Yes, maybe in a little lowercase l, maybe in some ways, but as soon as I claim it as mine, it ceases to flow. This is why my finger points at the moon. Don't look at my finger. I know you are. Don't look at my finger. Look at the moon. I was being funny. Of course, you were looking at finger. It's in the camera. Thanks, Hugo. I think our spirit born from Father needs to be developed in this physical space. As souls return to Father, we have all gathered in his name. Robert, this is what we're talking about, Robert. There's collective. There's this light net, I'm calling it. Think of a spider's web. Think of an internet, but it's a light net of mystics around the world, many of whom are near-death experiencers, many of whom are mystics who have been transported into the oneness and know the truth inside their divine self. And the crazy thing is, once this happens, it's not a lesson you learn. It's not something that I studied for. It's something that comes with the light itself as a gift to all who seek inside themselves. And maybe you'll say, but I've sought my whole life, Peter, and I haven't been able to do that. Well, I don't know all the answers, but I know that the core of yourself is still truly golden light. And the more you look there, the more you see there. And in community, in Sangha, right? Is that right? Sangha? Satsang? I don't know. My Buddhism is not so great. In our collective community of divine light sharers, the multiplication of the divine light is what empowers all of us to propel down the path. This is what Robert was talking about. In the writings of Paul, koinonia, community, the communion. This is the communion. The communion isn't a wafer or wine. The communion is the union with the divine. Communion of soul to soul. Communion of soul to soul on the human level. Community. Communion. Wow. So, David, I'm compelled to recommend you, as was recommended to me, Proof of Heaven by Eben Alexander is a must-read. I did read that book. It put me in mind, his book put me in mind of the similarity between Eden and Eben's Eden. Yes, for sure. Hugo, thank you for loving and caring for us. You're welcome. Hi, Susan. Thank you. It was a $110 solution to your wonderful production studio and your own willingness to seek silence. Thank you, Susan, and thanks for your advice. And if anybody want to help us defray that cost, I'd appreciate it, as you did, Susan. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's called Mic Mute PPD. It's the second audio edition. I put in that cloud connector, which boosted my microphone, which is another great solution. Bit by bit, inch by inch. For Robert, Peter has eyes to see. Well, thanks, Robert. They're not. The thing about it is that the eye, it's like Meister Eckhart said, the eye wherein I see God, God sees me. It's the divine self. I do my best to get out of the way. That's This is the secret of the meditative life, is the practice of removal of the egoic mind. You step aside. Step aside, pilgrim. Let the divine light in. That's what this is. We step aside. And the eye to see becomes who you are. It's the gift of heaven. Oh, Jay, see in an endless message, death is not there where life lives. Another near-death experiencer, Jay. So true. Endless message. Death is not there. Transition is. Love and blessings to all of you, says Barb. You're welcome. Glad I was awake to catch you this Sunday morning. Glad you were too, Barb. T-Barb. Hugo, I can afford $5 if that's okay. Oh my God, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Tiny, it's like, yes, definitely. Every little bit makes this difference. It's the collective. It's the group effort. And really what my dream for Not Church and Mystic Tea Salon, if you go to Mystic Tea Salon, you know that this is true because I talk about it all the time and we run the organization in this way, is that there is an egalitarianism. Somebody once described to me a couple of weeks ago that Mystic Tea Salon is like a teaching, like a school for teachers. I don't know if that's true or not, but the teachers are the people who are present. And we're all learning how to teach this where we are. It's very much divine driven. The purpose of Not Church as an entity, one of its many purposes, is to speak this ancient and repressed truth of Jesus's wisdom and the wisdom of the world mystics as a whole, because they all say the same thing in different accents. Mine is Christian accent. This entity is us. That's my dream. I've always tried to work myself out of a job. I know it's crazy, but that's what clergy life should be. To let you know inside yourself that all you need is necessary. All that's necessary that you need is there. Thank you, Ursula, neighbor. Thank you. We've got about 5 minutes left here. Yeah, I do tend to speak in poetry, Lawana. It's a weird thing, but poetry is the language of mysticism. And thanks for noticing, because it's fun for me to speak in poetry. It makes, I don't know, gives me a little rush. I like to play with words. Words are playthings. I can't square your use of metaphor with the tree of good and evil, which God asked Adam and Eve not to eat, with your thoughts about the tree of wisdom. Yeah, well, so what you're wondering is that why did they disobey? And the tree of wisdom. Okay, so I'm not sure what you're asking, John. When you suggested earlier that it was put Adam and Eve to be cast out of heaven, so I didn't say that it was put there to be for them to get cast out. I don't think, John. Let's talk this over at Mystic Tea. Would you like to do that? This is a little complicated. Um, I cannot square your use of the metaphor of the tree of good and evil with God asking Adam and Eve not to eat. Yes. Well, let's talk this over. I think there's a little bit of what the church calls disobedience, what I would call self-knowledge. I'd love to talk it over, John. I don't think we have time right now, my brother. But welcome back. Good to see you here down there in Rhode Island. I hope you're recovering well, too. Really good to see you back. My words of poetry, yes, they are. Thank you very much. Sheila, thank you. You're welcome. Emily, thank you, Peter, for the message that speaks to the heart. Nicole, you are a conduit. Everyone can be. But thank you, but it's not me. My job is, yes, okay, I guess I am the conduit. If I'm an empty pipe, that's what I'm looking for. Call me the empty pipe. The empty conduit, maybe filled with light that isn't mine. I don't know. I'm rambling. Okay, Tim, if you have time, Peter, please address what John said. Yes, I want to, but I really don't have time to get in all of it. I don't think. Um, and I'd like to hear a deeper explanation of what you're actually looking for. If you put that in, John, I might be able to get to the point quicker. I see the general question, but I don't see specific to answer in a short term. There's enough there to talk about it through Mystic Tea Salon for sure. Hey, Alex Ray, your smile helps me float. Susan, uh, humble nature is a guide to letting your third eye speak as the Holy Ghost wishes. Where there are three, they are divine. Where there are two, Jesus is there with them. We must become one. This is what we're saying here, Robert. This is what I'm saying here. You want to donate, Luana, thank you. Come to peterpanagore.love. There's a link there for sure. Spirituality is like a dance. A person feels the rhythm of the music will dance better than the one who only focuses on the steps. Everything you need to know is in the quiet, is when you quiet the mind and feel and listen, says Tiffany. Totally true. One doesn't get a pass on family bills just because one is a mystic sage. My check's in the mail. Thanks, Wendy. Yeah. Before enlightenment, wash the dishes. After enlightenment, wash the dishes. Don't forget to click like. Thanks, Tim. Where two or more are gathered in my name, there is love. Blessings to all. Late night in Australia. Donna, thanks for joining us from the land of Down Under, which is on top for you. So thanks for joining us from the top of the world. Thank you for being there. Thank you, T. Barb. We are one and beings of light. Thank you, Peter. You're welcome, Barb. Thanks for the super chat there. We're going to have to go in a couple minutes. So I have a break in between. Absolutely wonderful today. Thank you, Ellen. White horses on the bay down there. Eves, Gunder, we say language of birds and godly alchemy. The language of birds. See, that's the secret of my outdoor mic. I get to listen to the birds talk, especially the crows. Their language, they say stuff when they don't know anybody's listening. They don't just caw. Listening to the language of the birds. Thanks for that. Where two or more are gathered in my name, I am there. Let's see. Peter the poet. It is where the soul wants to go. Join on high. Yeah, true. Poetry in words is also the language that knows you are tuned into the Father's heaven. I have the same problem. It's a good problem to have, to speak in such language. You are up there with Rumi. I tell my clients, oh my gosh, I am down here on earth. But thank you. He's the master. Show the video, one man cried. With joy, I hope. Filled with light or some crazy drug. Oh, love, love, love. The love buzz. This thing, this energy between your hands. This thing here. This thing here. That you are. Dance on your garments in the spirit place. That is the Gospel of Thomas. All right, I got to go, folks. Rumi became an alcoholic of shams. Did he? Did he? Does that diminish his beauty? My friends, I've got to go on this beautiful day. White horses on the bay, says Ellen. A vision. Okay, so where we live, white horses on the bay means wind blowing up chop like a running field of horses across the bay. White horses on the bay and a bald eagle circling as we're speaking with thousands of points of light are dancing on the waves and in our hearts to blend poetry with Ellen. All right, my friend. I know, bro, that is love. It is love. It is a crazy drug, this love drug. I gotta go. Because I'll see you in a couple minutes at Mystic Tea Salon. Before I leave my desk, I'll turn it on. Peace and love to you all. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being a collective, a community. And see you in a minute over at Mystic Tea. Peace. And thanks again, Barb. Thanks again, Mary.